For being here tonight. My name is Jackie Metcalf, and I'm the founder and executive director of Texas Health and Environment Alliance. I think we know most everyone in the room. Raise your hand if you are not familiar with the background of the Jones Road Superfund site. Okay, a couple folks. All right, so I don't plan on going too deep into the historical information, but I'll give enough context so that hopefully what we're saying tonight makes sense, so that you guys can learn along with the rest of us. So first of all, on the agenda, you will see mine and my staff's contact information. And before we get too far into the presentation, I wanted to ask if there are any elected officials or representatives from elected officials' offices, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
All right, hello. So my name is Alma. I am the district liaison for State Rep Penny Morales-Shaw. So happy to be here. So they I'm new, so they did update me a little bit on what's going on tonight. So I'm happy to be a little bit more informed on things. I hear that there's some people going to the Capitol tomorrow, so I'm excited about that. She does have two committees that she's been assigned to. One is elections and one is environmental regulation. So those are the two committees that she is assigned to. So feel free, again, if you have any questions or concerns, anything you need to, if you can't get to Austin and you need to talk to me about something, I will definitely relate that information to her. So I appreciate you guys, and thank you for the time that you have here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Roger Bridgewater, and I'm with Tom Ramsey's office, Commissioner for Precinct 3. And Commissioner Ramsey has been here to this meeting before, and he goes to the meetings that we have out in Channelview. He, before being a commissioner, was a 41-year engineer, and part of his engineering degree from A&M included EPA. So he is very helpful in getting done things that we're trying to get done with Jackie and giving any assistance that we can. So if you have any questions for me, I'll be here after we're through. Also, thank you.
Thank you. Put you on the spot, Alita.
Hello, I'm with Harris County Pollution Control Services. My name is Elita Castleberry.
All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. So we are an organization that's a nonprofit that was truly founded out of necessity. And through my family's terrible experience living near a Superfund site, actually near 4 Superfund sites, we founded the organization Texas Health and Environment Alliance. And we use strategic science, grassroots organizing, media exposure, and a few basic tactics to try to bring about a change to clean up these Superfund sites and protect public health along the way. Uh-oh. Turn it on. It's on. That's gonna be a problem, but that's okay. The computer's way back there this time, so we might have to shift gears here. Let's see, we should have some more batteries in case that's the problem in the back of the extension cords. Okay, so first things first, tonight we wanted to talk about the Jones Road Groundwater Plume Superfund site and some of the updates that we have, but a brief background on the site. From 1988 to 2002, Bell Dry Cleaners, which is off of Jones Road, 11,600 is the physical address, and they dumped their dry cleaning solvent out back, and that was pulled into the groundwater system and to the west. Because of that, the EPA has gone through multiple records of decisions in trying to figure out how to clean this site up. Some people in the neighborhood just behind Ace Hardware west of the site feel like this site has been cleaned up. Well, it's easy to think that. The EPA has signed 2 records of decisions to date, going out or setting forward a path for cleanup. Yet it has still been determined that the site is not protective of human health and that there are open exposure pathways. Now these contaminants, one can be exposed to them from inhaling them if they're in gas form in the area, by ingesting them, bathing in them, And so there's a plume of contamination under the area west of the Superfund site, and that contamination has gone down deep into the aquifer, where many homes are still on groundwater wells to this day. In 2019, the EPA installed, yay, thank you. Okay, so, oh, this is a totally different clicker. We come prepared. Okay, so this is a great little map here, and this is indicating where the dry cleaner is or was in the corner of this shopping center here off Jones and Fairley Lane. And due to the high concentrations of vapors in the air at the shopping center, the EPA, as part of the remedy for this, installed a vapor mitigation system. And so that is, bear with me, I'm a little, out of sorts here, trying to catch up. So this unit here is to the east of that shopping center, and it's been operating since 2019. When it went online, the EPA estimated it would run for 2 years. It's still operating today. It is still pulling vapors from that shopping center today, and from the shallow zone just beneath the ground surface. Shallow, about 30 feet and up. And so last year that we learned recently from the EPA that last year the vapor mitigation system went offline due to a power outage. And the EPA very quickly actually coordinated and communicated with the tenants in that facility. That was an unusual step. We've never seen that happen before. The EPA historically always left it up to the property owner and the building manager to tell the tenants what was going on. So that was a good step. They let the tenants know, hey, there's this system here, it's offline. It was operating to pull harmful vapors out of the air. The downside to this situation, aside from not knowing if people were exposed to these contaminants, but the EPA did not test the air until about a month later, once the equipment was back operating. So it's really difficult to know if an exposure took place, or if once that went offline, if the vapors started increasing in the air in that shopping center. So we're not happy with that response time. We found out well after the fact, but we wanted to let you all know that that took place. And what that tells us, though, the fact that this vapor mitigation system is still operating today and is going to continue operating, there is a clear concern in the shallow ground, the area where there's not any water, but then also beneath the water table. And let's see, now I'm going to go back a couple slides. So this here is the Superfund process. And so it starts with the discovery of the contamination, which was in 2002. Goes through the site assessment, site investigation, getting listed as a national priority. Then it's the characterization of the site. What's there and how bad is it? That's the remedial investigation, followed by the feasibility study, where that then looks at, okay, here's the problem we've just learned in the remedial investigation. Now what can we do about it? That's what they figure out in the feasibility study. Then they sign a record of decision, which we've already had a couple of those here. They haven't gotten it right yet. And then comes the cleanup phase. So this site has technically been in the remedial action phase at least since 2019, when that vapor mitigation system went online and started pulling vapors. But the problem was that there was so much contamination deeper in the groundwater, and the intentions of that system was not to address that. So most recently, the EPA we're backtracking, and we're back right here in the characterization phase. And that's due to the known presence of the contaminants in the environment. And so I'm going to have my colleague Christy come up here and talk with you a little bit about what we're seeing in our water testing.
Nice to see some familiar faces. I am THEA's Environmental Outreach Coordinator, Christy, and I'm going to talk about a couple of the places and outreach that we have been doing. So, here we are. So we started doing some outreach in 2023 independently on our own. And we have started doing the outreach so we can determine if the plume has moved. And according to some of our testing that we have done, you can see the stars with the COCs, which is contaminants of concern that have been found by us when we do the testing. We do quarterly testing and then we do yearly testing. The outreach that we have done is independent, and we can see that the plume has not really migrated outside of the EPA's territory as much as we thought that it had. You can see that the number of off-gassing and contamination levels have varied here. And that is one of the reasons that we do continue to test. You can see the different months and you can see the different numbers. So we may test one time and there may be nothing detected. We may test another time and there's still something detected.
That's in parts per billion?
It is. And if you want to think about parts per million, you're thinking about one drop in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And then also here you can see the contamination levels and how it has fluctuated. So when we do the testing, we are doing it from the tap and then outside at the hose spigot. A couple of you we have tested before, and at the hose spigot versus inside, we can see the off-gassing. And you can also see when it is closest to the well, if there is going to be a different number versus if it is in the actual house that may be connected to the municipal utility district or the mud versus the well. So sometimes the numbers will be different there as well.
Christy, can you tell us what off-gassing is?
So the off-gassing would be more of the vapors into the air off of the contaminants of concern, which the contaminants of concern is going to be trichloroethylene, perchloroethylene, and then, I'm sorry.
Tetrachloroethylene.
No, that's trichloroethylene. There's perchloroethylene, then there's monochloride, which it breaks down, but there's, yeah, it all breaks down and loses a chlorine each time. Really long. Was there any other questions?
And you said that's in parts per billion or million?
It is in parts per billion. So if you break that down with micros per liter, it's going to be 0.07. It's all in the comparison to that. Anybody else have any other questions?
Who determines where the quarterly sampling is?
So we have taken this map that Thea's assistant director created, and as you can see, we have tested inside the plume, and then we have tested outside of the plume. So you can see that there's the drilling restriction area, and then outside where you see the COCs, which is the contaminants of concern, that has been found by us.
What bounds the plume to or less?
The EPA made an imaginary
Yeah,
line.
imaginary. It's just a guess.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, what is it? The one on Forest Valley that has the star?
Yes.
Is that my house?
I can't say yes or no, but it would. But we haven't tested your house, so it wouldn't be. It would be someone that we haven't
It looks
tested.
like it's in the neighborhood. It's on the block.
If you would like to be part of our yearly. Okay, awesome. So, but if you also would like to be part of our yearly, like if we do find something, and I believe I talked to you about the cat hack as well, so I do have some of the information up there that we talked about on the phone too, so if you want any of that, or if you talk after, feel free, I'm here for you. Yep.
All right, thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so the contamination, as Christy was showing here on this map, this is how we define the plume. The EPA defines the plume in a very small area within here, but it is not our opinion that that is the best way to define a plume. And every expert we have consulted with, that is not the best way to define a plume. You go to where the contaminants actually are and create a boundary. And so that's what we've done here. We went through all of the EPA's testing that they've ever done on this site, as well as the state of Texas, and we're able to create this boundary of where, in our opinion, the contamination is based on where it has been found. So I mentioned that the EPA was coming back here to this characterization phase. So acknowledging that are open pathways for exposure and that there is deeper groundwater contamination that needs to be addressed, the EPA's backtracked, and now they're going back into a remedial investigation. My colleague, Victoria, is going to talk more about that in just a minute, but before she does, going backwards, in a time right now where so many people are hearing about EPA's funding getting cut, EPA's scientists or toxicologists, science arm of the agency being cut or dismantled. In a time like right now, people are wondering, is this Superfund site going to move forward? Is the program still going to even exist? And that was something we asked very clearly of the EPA folks who work with this site, but then some of the folks that we have contact with at EPA headquarters. And the good news is, despite this site not having a responsible party that foots the bill, the money for this site and for the remedial investigation has already been allocated. So the contractor has been awarded this remedial investigation phase of now EPA trying to figure out where are the contaminants today, where are they right now that needs to be cleaned up. That contract has been awarded. We went ahead and put the timeline on the bottom of your agenda so that you can have that. I know Commissioner Ramsey's office and others, including residents, have been pushing the EPA, give us a timeline. And so they finally did. And to me, part of this is the first time in many, many years. I know some of you here have been involved in this site much longer than I have and that our organization has. But this is the first time since we've been involved where we saw a timeline. And to me, that tells me that the EPA is listening and that the pressure is working. Because we let them know, hey, we're having the community meeting in March. Please be there. They could not be here today. But we said, we need updates. If you guys are working on this, you're telling me this is your full-time job. What are you doing? And so we got updates. They were posted on the Superfund site's website. And we have some of them here for you today. I thought it was important specifically to include this timeline here for you all. But aside from the funding for the remedial investigation being allocated, one thing that we learned was the allocations for these projects at orphan sites typically takes place 3 years in advance. So in EPA, so the money for this site was allocated a long time ago. And I spoke with someone at EPA headquarters about Superfund on a national scale. Hey, should we be concerned? Is this going to be next? And the sentiment was very much no. If something happens, it might look like a rebrand, but this work will very much continue.
If they're
Yes?
going back to characterization, they can't say they don't. If they're going back to characterization, they're going to start all over.
Essentially.
Because there's migration in groundwater.
Absolutely, yeah.
The soil vapor extraction is trying to minimize the source, remove the source.
Right.
Migration, stuff's already in migrating. And the record, was that a record of decision? That's going to have to be all done over again, right?
Correct.
So, and the idea where the migration of the plume is, unless they've sampled like the last quarter or something.
So they are sampling quarterly, and so they are sampling some of the areas around, you know, the plume boundary and within the plume borderly. They're not willing to go beyond the lines. They have not been willing to anyways.
No detects all the way around?
No.
Okay, so.
Yeah, no, they're not. Yeah, so Victoria's going to talk to you a little bit more about what they've let us know about what they're going to be doing in the remedial investigation. But you are absolutely correct. Yep, they're essentially basically starting over. Yeah, I mean, they're missing the early year stuff, but yeah, they're going to have to completely recharacterize where it is today.
The belt cleaners?
They filed for bankruptcy and they settled with the EPA. I want to say it was like $140,000. Yeah.
And he died of cancer. There's a star way out of here.
Yes, and let's see. Okay, yes. So that was carbon tetrachloride.
Okay.
And we are keeping an wait, Rachel. Yeah. Okay. And we're keeping an eye on this one. I believe we're going to be testing a neighbor on Thursday, and so carbon tetrachloride is unlikely from this site, and we have tested many homes between this area and here. If we've tested a house over here and it's not on the map because it didn't show anything.
So somebody could be dumping, in other words, potentially?
It appears to be a very hyperlocal issue.
Okay.
Yeah, and unsure of the source, but very localized issue. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to hand it over to Victoria so that she can talk more in depth about the remedial investigation and feasibility study. Oh, I'm just all out of sorts now that I didn't have my slides. Here you go.
Thank you, Jackie. All right, good evening. As Jackie said, I'm Victoria, and I'm going to talk to you guys about the remedial investigation and the feasibility study. Ooh, hopefully you can see it a little better now. So before I get started with what's going to be included in these phases for the remedial investigation, I do want to reiterate that the purpose of the remedial investigation is for EPA to be able to determine the extent of the contamination. So they're trying to figure out how far and how deep the contaminants go. And then that's going to take place before the feasibility study. In the feasibility study is where they're going to determine how to treat it. So one proposal that has been talked about is pump and treat, and that's how they're going to, like, with the study is how they're going to determine, is that feasible, is that doable, and if not, what is the alternative remedy? So phase 1 for the remedial investigation is estimated to begin in September of this year, and it's going to include a site inspection and well survey. It's also going to include updating of the conceptual site model. Now, does this have a pointer? Yes. This is a conceptual site model that was done for this site in 2008. I put this image up here just to show what that looks like. As you can see, it's pretty small so you can't read it, but there's a pretty extensive legend on the side. So the map holds quite a bit of information. However, it is conceptual, so it does have its limitations. They're also going to be producing a data gap report and a geologic model. For this, they're going to be doing some borehole geophysical logging, so basically taking some samples from the underground to determine the underground, the rock properties, the geological characteristics. And with this, they're going to produce some more stuff that I'll talk about in phase 2. But one part that is very important and relevant to all residents is that during this phase, they're also going to be obtaining property access agreements. And the reason they're going to be needing these is because they are going to be capturing vapor samples. And for this, they do need to access properties in order to gather those samples. Now, we know that many residents had expressed some concerns, particularly the concern that they might have to drill into foundations of homes. We relayed this concern directly to EPA, this very specific concern, they assured us that this is not the intention and that whatever methodology they're going to use for sampling will be communicated to y'all. So they're actually planning to have a community meeting before they go out, knocking on doors trying to obtain these access agreements so that you can thoroughly understand what that sampling is going to look like.
Now, they've been sampling as well since 2008.
So they have some monitoring wells, and that's the sampling that they do. Is they do some monitoring through the wells that they have installed. But this type of sampling that they're talking about is going to be soil gas vapor sampling. Did I say that right? Passive soil gas air sampling. Sorry, I get that name mixed up all the time. And this is going to be to test for harmful gases. So they are also going to be continue to monitoring the wells and continue to grab groundwater samples. But they need both. They need the groundwater samples and they also need to test for vapors.
What were those, since that first sampling, have they seen any migration of the plume?
So we can't really say at this time what they have or have not seen. This is really the portion of the process in which they're going to be able to give us all that information.
So they're not giving, that's not public information?
I'm actually not entirely sure. I'm sure you could ask. I'm sure that, you know, if you ask the EPA, they'll say something, but it hasn't been a thorough study. So they just have data they've collected over time. The actual investigation that where they're going to put all that together and put all the pieces of the puzzle starts now with the remedial investigation again.
Is that site model, is that the one that TCEQ did, the 3D model of the actual?
Yes, yes. Way back in 2008. You've seen it before.
I have.
All right, I want to talk a little bit more about the passive soil air gas sampling, because I know that's one topic that many residents are concerned about. And these are actually screenshots from a video that's up on the EPA website showcasing some of the potential ways that this type of sampling can be done. One of those is outside on the soil. Right here, what he's doing is this is the inside of what you see that gentleman performing there. So basically they drill a hole that can go from 18 to 24 inches long. If that doesn't make much sense to you, imagine a standard school ruler, about 2 of those or less. And then it's about 1.5 inches wide, so it's a very narrow hole. And they drop a cylinder in there. And then inside that cylinder, they deploy the instrument that captures the sample. And they leave it there for either days or weeks, whatever time they have predetermined. Then they pick it up again and send it to the lab. That's where they're going to get that information. Another way that they can do passive soil gas sampling is over here. This tripod that you see behind the gentleman, it's a lot smaller than the camera tripod you're seeing here. As you can see, it's a smaller tripod, stands on the table, and you can barely see it, but in the middle, right here, it holds a tiny instrument, and that's the instrument that actually captures the sample. So this is another way that the sampling can be done. This is more fitted for indoors, because it can be set into place. Again, this is something that they deploy, so they put it there, they leave it for a specific amount of time, then they pick up the instrument, send it to the lab, and that's how they can gather data. So these are some of the ways that sampling can be done. Again, the actual methodology that's going to be used during this remedial investigation still needs to be determined by the contractor, and APA is supposed to communicate this in the next meeting that they host, but if we hear anything, we'll keep you updated. We're keeping a close eye on this specific issue because we know it's very relevant to y'all. Before I move on, I do want to say that we do want to encourage everybody to participate in the study. So if they do come knocking on your door asking for an access agreement, we do encourage you to participate if you can and if you want to. The reality is this is one of those parts of the process where EPA can be very limited, because if they can't get to a property to gather data, that's going to determine how much data they can obtain. So phase 2 begins about a year from now, March 2026. And during this phase, they will evaluate some of the wells and potentially redevelop wells. So there may be some wells that are being abandoned or that they're being closed. There may be new monitoring wells that are being installed, or maybe the wells are needing to be modified in some way. So that's something that will take place in phase 2. And then potentially the biggest portion of this phase is the high resolution site characterization map. Now this image right here is an example. This is not Jones Road Superfund site. This is just an example of what an HRSC model can look like. And as you can see, it's very different from the conceptual site model. It's a lot more thorough. And the reason for this is because with this characterization, they're actually using advanced instruments that give them real-time data so that they can produce a model that is a lot more accurate. And this same model can later be used during the feasibility study to help, conceptually test out what types of remedies could be potentially used. Throughout both phases and well into 2027, there's going to be continued sampling, so continued groundwater and vapor sampling, and that's going to take me right into this timeline. So you guys have the timeline on your agenda as well, but the timeline starts right now, March of 2025. The contract has been awarded, and the contractor is supposed to come out this month to check out the site, walk the site, survey the wells, and then they produce a plan. And so the work plans are produced between March and August of this year. And during this time, these are drafted, reviewed, and approved. Somewhere in that time frame, EPA will host the next community meeting. We are told to expect it to happen from between sometime in either May or June. So hopefully there'll be some updates on the plans and the methodology for sampling, all that good stuff. And then access agreements are to be obtained between May and September of this year. After those access agreements have been secured is when the field investigation happens, and that's when we go into phase 1 and phase 2 of the field investigation. It is expected, according to the EPA's estimated timeline, that this remedial investigation should be completed by September 2026. And again, that's just the remedial investigation part. After this period of time is when EPA would go into doing the feasibility study. Now, I know that there might be a lot of questions about what happens in each of one of these steps. There's a lot of details that are still to be seen. Again, the contractor does have to develop those plans and submit them to EPA for approval. But it is a really great thing that we have this timeline. So I do want to reiterate that it is good progress, that we at least have a concrete idea of what's coming next.
So have the contractors visited, they're supposed to visit the homeowners of wells, or what's the site visit involved?
You mean this first step right here, the site visit with contractor? So site visit with contractor is EPA and their contractor. They're not contacting owners at this time, at least to our knowledge. That's just them doing their thing. They start contacting residents when they get to the portion of the access agreements.
Excellent.
Again, remember they do have monitoring wells already installed, and so they might be going to those. That's all I have for the remedial investigation feasibility study part, but before I let you go, I do want to remind y'all that EPA is still doing the water connection signups. So if you are in that no new wells area and you're still on a private well, you are welcome to contact the EPA so you can get switched over to a public water supply. And we've left our contacts right here. There is one more contact on your agenda for Samsung. He's the RPM that's filling in for Miss Lauren, who's out on maternity leave. So you can use any of those contacts to get in touch with them. And that is something that, right now or throughout the time of the investigation, this is something that ongoing is a resource to y'all.
Did they pay for the hookup, or did we pay
I believe so. If you are inside that no new wells line. All right, thank you.
I think they pay for the hookup.
We do.
All right, thanks, Victoria. Okay, so just one last thing here about continuing to be involved. This is a really important time to continue your engagement in the Superfund process because of all of the new things that are going to be taking place. And people need to understand that this site has not been cleaned up. It is one of the handful of sites, literally in the U.S., that the federal government has designated a threat to public health. And it's right here. And so we all need to be engaged in this process. Now I'll tell you, several administrations ago, I was able to go to EPA headquarters in Washington, D.C. about 4 to 6 times a year and meet with the heads of different departments and the head of the EPA. And during that time, they were working on more of these, what they call orphan Superfund sites, than they had been, the EPA had been in many administrations. And I really believe that out of the ones that the EPA was allocating funds to and working on was because I'm going to DC, bringing all your letters with me, bringing all the stories of community health problems that we've been told, and keeping it on their radar. And the community, when they've come here, has continued showing up. We send them letters. You all sign the letters. We send the letters. And I firmly believe that if the community wasn't involved, if people were not engaged, our elected officials and agencies were not letting the EPA know, hey, we're paying attention to this, I don't think it would be going anywhere. And so I just wanted to, let you know that I strongly encourage you to continue engaging in this process. I know many of you have been involved for a very long time. So a couple of other ways how you can help us help you. I'll let Pamela Bonta talk with you about that briefly.
Jackie, do we have any information about a health study by the state health department doing a data search?
Sure. Do we have any information about a study from the state? Do you want to talk about that? A little out of order here, yeah? Okay, I'll let Alma talk about that.
As I said, it was new, but so I did get updated, and it wasn't much of an update. So they basically said it's still on our radar. They have emailed the proper authorities, have not heard back from them. So we're hoping that the support letters will also help, and we're still going to keep at it. So hopefully we can have some good news for you soon.
So many of you know that previously when we asked the state to do a cancer assessment for the area around the plume, they denied it. And at that time, we made 3 requests to the state, one for each of the communities we were working with. I was advised that was not the right choice. They said you need to stagger them. So this time we went at it with a little bit of a different strategy and have been having elected officials do some of the asking on behalf of the constituents who've been contacting them. And so that seems to have had some movement, but the difficulty with the state in these studies is that they really try to pigeonhole you. And you might ask for something, say a specific study area in a specific way that it's broken out, and they will give you something a little different. And so there's a lot of those details that are very important to be worked out. I don't know how many of you heard in recent weeks the news of the cancer cluster in East Harris County. That was our work. That was our organizations taking what's reported in the health surveys, asking the state to study the 29 types of cancers that our residents over there care about. And I worked very closely with the director of the epidemiology division at Texas Department of State Health Services since February of last year to get that study done. And And so these things unfortunately take time, and we did have to come at it a little differently strategically for this community, but we're fortunate to have the reps that have been involved. Yes?
Was that the same kind of chemical?
Different chemicals. Over there we have dioxins, PCBs, furans, and heavy metals. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to back up just a little bit. So disinfecting your well. Why is this sheet important to you that have wells? Very important to disinfect your well, but also in this packet, there is information that you can make sure your well is registered. If you have a hard time finding out if your well is registered, get a hold of Thea. They'll find out and help you find out. Why is it important to have your well registered? So the government can see that you have a well and that they need to contact you guys because of the chemicals that they have found. They need to know that you're registered so that they can send information to you or knock your door or help you get onto the mud, which I highly recommend because that is monitored. Is it going to cost you a little bit of money to have a water bill? Sure, I have a water bill. I'm on a fixed income. I still can pay my water bill. I'd rather have monitored good water than water that I don't know what's running and when it's running and nobody's watching it. Cancer is a lot more expensive than a water bill. So please, take advantage. It's not going to be free to hook you up to mud water forever. At one point, they were charging people to hook up to it. So take advantage of it while it's free and make sure you're safe and you're monitored and everybody's keeping an eye on what you got coming in your house. That's why this one is important. There's some at the table. Disinfecting your well, but also knowing what to do with your well. Super important. The other thing, the health sheet. So the way that I came up with this health sheet is about 15 years ago I did a study when I lived in Highlands, where we now have the cancer cluster deemed a cancer cluster for 250 miles. There is a cancer cluster. That's the largest cancer cluster ever admitted in the state of Texas. I'm super proud of that, and that my daughter's name is attached to that. That took moving mountains, literally. So when I came up with this health sheet, my daughter was very ill, my family was ill, and the EPA had given me one similar to this. And on the back, they say, you know, check off the illnesses you have. Well, my house almost checked every illness on this sheet. So I came up with the sheet for us, for different areas. Jackie's team has tweaked it a little bit. We've added some more illnesses because different chemicals cause different illnesses. So this sheet is super important. Super important. You can go online and you can fill it out. Include your animals. Animals are just as important as your family members because they are your family members. I feel like people have forgotten, oh, my dog has cancer. Even right now, I live about a mile, not quite a mile and a half from the site. All kinds of people in my neighborhood are having cancer and their dogs are getting cancer. Dogs are low to the ground. So there's that. But this is a super important sheet. If you have new issues that are coming up, please fill this sheet out or go online and add your new illnesses. This is going to help us deem your illnesses are going to help prove there is a cluster or whatever is going on. It's going to really be very helpful. So this sheet is key to everything. The other thing, thank you all for showing up. It's not easy in the evening to get in your car, especially if you're older, and drive anywhere and have to drive home in the dark. We appreciate you showing up. It takes a village. If you all weren't here, trust me, Maureen, nothing would be done. Maureen delivers the word through her neighborhood to so many people, and we're so grateful for people like her that is going to go and tell maybe 15 people that she knows, or maybe 5 people. If you all go home, tell your neighbors, talk to your neighbors. Most people don't talk to each other about cancer or illnesses. But for your neighborhood, it's important that you all come together and you all start comparing things and putting the puzzle pieces together. That's what's going to help people help you. If we don't know what's going on, then we can't do anything to help you. And leading into that is, I have a doctor that I found many years ago. Her name is Kelly Wilson. She is a female doctor. I wish I had a male doctor. But she has found things in people that other doctors just said, it's arthritis, or it's nothing. And she knows how to connect the chemicals in your body to the illnesses or the blood samples or whatever she's going to look at. She's going to say, oh, it's vinyl chloride or trichloroethylene or dioxin. She is absolutely amazing. She does blood work in her office. She has her own compounding facility in her office. She has literally found tumors and illnesses in people that I know and saved their lives, including my own family. So her card is here. It's Kelly Wilson. I'll give you one of her cards. There's a bunch of them on the front desk, but I always talk about her because a lot of doctors are not schooled in the chemicals and the result to the body. So thank you very much, and thanks for showing up.
Thank you. All right, so now we'll go ahead and open it up to a Q&A, and let me know if you have any questions. I know your hand went up when we mentioned the cancer cluster on the east side. Did you have a question about that?
No, I was just asking about the chemicals when they were saying the rest here.
Oh, okay, gotcha. You had asked earlier, sir, about who determines where the quarterly testing is done. Were you asking about our testing or EPA's testing?
EPA.
Okay, yeah. So EPA, they have their agreements already in place with certain residents. One is kind enough to always share his records with us, so we do get to see some of what they're seeing and what we're seeing. Now, we did see some of the air testing that the EPA has done inside homes in the last 6 to 8 months. And I will say that they did not find high levels of the contaminants from this site, but the chemicals are there. They're in very low levels. Right now, my team and I are actually talking about comparing those levels to other states' standards, because EPA goes off of Texas's standards to say what's safe or not, and most other states have vastly different standards than we do. So hopefully we'll have some more information on that next time. But it's also difficult to differentiate if what they're seeing in the air is from a degreaser, is from dry cleaning that they brought home. So it is difficult when you are seeing those levels to determine where it's from. So that's part of why we're really excited for this soil vapor sampling.
So is there any public report listing their exceedances of that maximum allowable?
So there was a 5-year review done, I think about 2 years ago by now. That's online, and that I think has some of the upper limits that they have seen, but there's definitely not a one-stop shop.
We know they have to file a report, public document every so many years?
EPA?
Does the Superfund site have to file a public document that's accessible to everybody?
The 5-year review is online, and there is a fair amount of information on their website online, absolutely.
That's not EPA.
Yes. We had to do Freedom of Information Act requests to be able to get a lot of data and the actual data rather than the tables and things that they put together. We want what the lab sent, and so that's what we went through. Where you literally need a magnifying glass. I'm going to go back to a map really quick, so hold your eyes. I know that there's some folks interested in this area, or just west of the original plume, that we've talked previously about the groundwater quality over there. And we have not seen, in what we've tested, as I mentioned, we have not seen the contaminants west of that red boundary. But I came in, looking through all of the data in the last few months, I came across an old data set, and I don't remember if it was TCEQ or EPA. And I'm just saying this because I know folks are here who care about this. I wasn't planning on talking about it. But it was either an EPA or a TCEQ document, and there was very deep vinyl chloride contamination in the aquifer over there. So probably why we're not seeing it in our testing is we've been in about the 200 foot below ground surface range. And it was deeper, like 400 or so. So I did see that deeper. It's concerning. These contaminants, some like to sink deeper. So I have that on my radar, and that will be on our radar talking to the
Don't all these
EPA.
waters sink? Aren't these all sinkers?
Well, they are, but if they can vaporize, they will as well.
No.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes.
So you know some people that have wells, so who do you register the well?
So it should be with the Texas Department of License, I think it's Licensing and Registration. It's been a while since I rattled that one off. TDLR is the acronym. Yeah. And go ahead and grab one of those packets. It definitely has the different entities. But that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult. I know like the well I grew up on wasn't registered. Most of the ones in the community I come from over on the San Jacinto weren't registered. You know, the company would just drill them. And there are not supposed to be any new wells drilled in this area, but they're still drilling them. That just means they're probably also not registering them because they would be told that they, that they can't drill them. Yes?
So once, and I don't know if it's too early to determine this, but once they start the field investigation, are they finally going to go outside of that one area, or are they still going to stay within?
So we're certainly going to keep pushing them to go outside of it, and especially for the deeper contamination, because to us, we don't believe from what we've seen that there's two plumes. You know, what you see up here, that kind of lone star over there, we believe that's a hyperlocal issue, but the rest of it, from the west side to the dry cleaning, it just doesn't make sense that there would be more than one source. So we'll keep pushing them to go outside and deeper outside.
Yeah, because that also ties into the access agreements. They're going to have to be asking people outside of there as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. They do have monitoring wells right on the boundary, and that would be interesting to know if one of my team members can take note of that, to know the depth of those monitoring wells that are on that western boundary. I'd also like to know the ones right down there at the shopping center at 1960 and Jones, what those depths are. Yeah, so we can look at that also, more of the historical data, and see what they've seen over time in terms of what they're seeing in the deepest areas. These were hits for vinyl chloride. I remember very clearly. And the EPA noted in one of their old reports that this was in fact vinyl chloride from the dry cleaner.
Which way is the plume? No water plume. Which way is it?
Southeast.
South, southeast.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think it would be nice to have a map showing all of the non-detect testing
I
that's
agree.
done beyond the boundary.
I agree.
This gives the impression that you're not doing anything outside of that, but you have.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. So he said that he thinks it would be good to have a map that shows the non-detects. So I agree, and perhaps even an indication of like the depths for those non-detects. So as I said earlier that, it's not because we haven't tested over here, it's because we haven't found it. That was the thought that popped in my head. Why aren't they up there just in a different color to indicate a non-detect? So let me go through some of these old slides that we have here. There's a map here. So this is everywhere that we have tested. And this is the Superfund site. And so you can see here going out by distance, up to half a mile, and then half a mile to a mile is in green, and then a mile to a mile and a half, and then 1.5. There was another localized issue. I can't recall if it was this one or this one. That appeared to be a very localized petroleum issue, and this original round of testing we did with the University of Texas Medical Branch several years back, but we now on our own fully independently do the testing. And since then, all of these that were tested did not have any of the contaminants detected. So that's this information was also used in part to build that map of ours. Yes, Maureen?
In Tower Oaks, which is where some of us live, there doesn't seem to be, we've had our wells tested, nothing that we've been advised has shown up. So does that mean, do I really need to come to another meeting?
I feel like y'all ask that every time. My answer, of course, is yes. I believe that this information is important for everyone in the area because they can't stabilize the plume without everyone's involvement. And the EPA doesn't know where the plume is today. Something about that was asked earlier, about do they know the outer boundaries or something? No, they don't know where it is today. And I mean, sadly, I feel like we have a better idea than they do, but...
If it's moving southwest, you said?
South-southeast.
Then it would be heading away from our area.
It should
turn around and go the other way?
It should be, and that's where those 3D maps are going to be key because, Rachel, we should put a slide in the extra slides of the water districts. There are so many little water districts around here now.
We're not on one, we're all on wells in Tower Oaks.
And it's really, you know, the man with the biggest well wins, right? And so you can locally change the direction of the flow.
Yeah.
And that's how the plume went west to begin with. Against the normal flow was the demand of Cypress when it first started moving. And so I believe it is important for everyone to stay engaged until the EPA can get a grip on where the contamination is and what they're going to do about it. And really, truly, that next part from there is the most critical because that's when they decide how they're going to clean it up. And you know what is so frustrating is back in, I think, 2010, TCEQ had said that they recommended pump and treat for this, that they would pump up the water, treat it, and then inject it back down. But they said it would take 30 years. So the EPA stepped in, and they reviewed everything, and they said, no, no, we're taking this over. But here we are. Here we are. And it's sunk deeper. It's gone, we don't exactly know where, you know, so getting that decision right is everything. If they would have gotten it right back then, or in the next time they signed it, we hopefully wouldn't have had to be here today. So getting a record of decisions signed, that is what the community wants, is so important. And so it'll go remedial investigation, where all that testing will go done, then then feasibility study. What are the options? And they weigh those options off of 8 criteria. One of them is cost, but one of them is also community acceptance. And trust me, it matters. At San Jacinto, we organized over 55,000 people to advocate for the cleanup that the community wanted. And we got it signed into the record of decision, one of the strongest dioxin cleanups in the US. And so it can happen. And once you get through that feasibility study and they lay out the options, then they propose what will be done. And that's where they look at the 8 criteria and weigh public acceptance in that process. So that's a really critical time and an important time for people to be engaged and standing together. Yes?
This was a very helpful map to me. We live exactly a mile from the site. So we're right on the border between the green and the blues. And you're saying nothing's been found out there.
So we'll never be able to speak historically, right? And that's the difficult thing about these situations. We can never say for certainty. But it's right around that area where we saw the deep vinyl chloride. But did it sink deeper in another area and then move further west? Or was it shallower and then sink in that spot? I don't know that, you know, the hydrogeology, the geologic process that got it to that point. Yes, sir?
Isn't vinyl chloride a degradation product?
It's the end product.
The end product.
Yeah.
Also, are there any municipal supply wells around?
Oh, absolutely.
Aren't they pulling the plume in all different directions?
Quite possibly. Quite possibly. And so it truly, we usually have a variety of folks here from different water
Yeah, they
authorities.
spread it all over.
And so that's, you know, a big part of this problem and is that as long as this behavior that we all do is going on, we can't quite get there all the way. And so it's gonna take a combined effort, and it's gonna take, you know, some of the different water folks getting in the room with the EPA, and sitting down and talking about this, and how are we actually gonna manage this to control that plume? Because as long as there are a bunch of individual wells and a bunch of wells that are pulling for 15 to thousands of people, you can't really get it fully stable. Yes, ma'am.
After they injected their wells with what was supposed to clean it up,
Yes.
have they retested to see if any of that injection is still hanging around or if it helped?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm failing to recall the absolute answer. So she's asking about the bioremediation where they injected compounds into the ground to help break up the contaminant. And there's concern about the product that they shoot down, and if there's residual of that, is that harmful? And then also the retest, was it effective? The only thing that strikes out glaringly in my mind is when we emailed the EPA and asked if the retest was effective, and it was like 3 months after, and they had not reviewed the data yet. And I'm going,
Okay, I'm getting the
is this
same
your main
answer.
site? And so, do any of y'all recall, did we ever?
What I
learn more?
recall is that it was helping, but it wasn't helping as effectively as they wanted it to. So that's why they haven't like hammered down on that remedy, because it's just not as effective as they intended it to be.
Did you get data on that at all?
That would have been before my time, so I haven't personally seen any data.
They're trying to chemically treat
Yes. Yeah.
millions of gallons of water, not chemically treat. Millions of gallons of water.
Yeah.
I didn't hear what you said.
He said they're trying to
And no, we're paying for this. Our tax dollars.
Sorry.
Right. Yeah, so we actually submitted several Freedom of Information Act requests in the last year, and they've been coming in on a rolling basis. So we can look back and see if any of that data came in one of our Freedom of Information Act requests. We all know that as well, that we need to look back for the bioremediation data.
And you guys still have the chemical, what was injected, right?
In terms of, do we know the chemical names?
Yeah.
Not off the top of mind, but we can find it. So these, you all know, you know, sir, these are long fights. But we're here for the long haul, and this is gearing up for battle. So again, we appreciate you being here. We hope to continue seeing you. Please call us if you have any questions or concerns. Happy to relay them to the agency or just hear them. And our team, you'll see them in the field on Thursday. They'll be doing our quarterly testing. Thank you all.